all of us are more than concerned, deeply, deeply disturbed by, outraged by what is happening in Aleppo, which is, in the year 2016, in the beginning of the 21st century, a horrendous step back in time to a kind of barbarianism, a use of force that is an insult to all of the values that the United Nations and most countries believe should guide our actions. It's a humanitarian disaster that is the largest humanitarian disaster since World War II. And it could stop tomorrow morning, tonight, if Russia and the Assad regime were to behave according to any norm or any standard of decency. But they've chosen not to. And Russia has not even focused most of its efforts on al-Nusra, which is al-Qaeda. 80 to 85% of their bombing has been done against the opposition, the moderate opposition, not the extreme, but the moderate opposition in Syria. And they do that in order to support Assad under the guise of fighting terror. But they would be hard-pressed to show the number of times they have actually gone after Daesh or ISIL, and hard-pressed even when the facts are laid out to show how they have in fact bombed Nusra as opposed to the legitimate opposition.
You hit Nusra, I believe you described it as Al-Qaeda, maybe in March or something, or February. It was earlier this year.
Yep.
Since then, there hasn't been any specific action against Nusra, is that right? Military action?
No, but I'd have to double check. I just can't definitively say that. As they became intermingled, and as they became intermingled in civilian areas, we've always sought to limit the possibility of civilian casualties.
The combatants who are holding out in East Aleppo are financed and controlled by Saudi Arabia, Turkey, Qatar, and the United States. These powers have the ability to pressure the rebels to say, get the civilians off the battlefield. Syria has allowed 7 exit points. They've made it very clear that they will care for, give medical attention, food, housing to all civilians who leave rebels. They're holding the civilians as human hostages so that they can force Syria and Russia to take additional casualties.
Since the beginning of 2011, France has been sending members of our special services and security services to Syria to support and train rebel fighters. From the very start, we were on the wrong side. Today, we've begun understanding and acknowledging this, but it's being covered up by our politicians and the media. The difference between the so-called moderate rebels with whom you can work and the Islamic State murderers is absolutely non-existent. It's made up to manipulate public opinion.
There are no groups in Aleppo supporting freedom and democracy. There are only Islamist terror groups. That's the reality of the situation. They've proclaimed Sharia law there.
6 years later, what are the French doing? They're arming, training, financing and giving political and media support to terrorists in Syria. In the end, the very same groups sent cowardly people to spread terror at the Bataclan, in Nice, in Normandy and so on.
We need some explanation. Is the US fighting terror groups such as ISIL as it publicly states, or is it helping the movement to grow more and more powerful?